Either there are people who just love to hear me complain, or they love rankings, or maybe it's both. But this is the Podcast Daily. It's Thursday. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward, and we got multiple questions on subtext, following up on our riveting conversation about Wrigley Field earlier in the week. And Berm, they want us to rank all of the best and worst experiences. This not for fans. That's a different list, but for the media covering the games. So let's do that. You guys didn't have any chance to prepare, so we're not going to go 1 through 14. But let's run through some of the pros and cons of going on the road to cover Ohio State, which, again, I will preface this conversation by saying I am blessed and lucky to do this. There are still, however, occasional inconveniences to going on the road. So, yes, I will complain about it, but no, it would not keep me from wanting to go to any of these venues to cover college football and cover the Buckeyes. So I ought to get that out of the way. I don't want to sound like I'm just bitching and moaning the whole time. I am still going to cover college football, and I'm being paid to be there. So let's make that clear up front.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah. You enjoy the work. You live for the work. You're passionate about it.
My passion is also why I complain if somebody makes it hard for me to do my job.
That's right. So what end of the spectrum are we starting on here?
Let's start with the worst. Let's get that out of the way. And
should we all in unison say Penn State? Or
yeah, I was going to say, should we just say Penn State? I didn't want to dive right into Penn State because of Bill, your personal connection there. But yeah, I mean, we can all just talk about Penn State. Do you think that their $700 million renovation that they're trying to get passed through or did pass through this week is going to change anything for us?
Yeah, they're going to bring a new press box.
I think
change it
for worse
for me and Austin, but maybe not for you if you're not in the press box.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to start there, and that's why I said there were people that asked on subtext, like the best ones for fans and media. Well, this is one that's very clearly different for a fan experience, that if you want to go to a whiteout and you like big time games and big time environments, of course, Penn State ranks up at near the top of the list. You could make a case that it is at the top of the list for places that Ohio State goes on the road frequently. But it is the very worst, without question, in the Big Ten for the media.
For everything else.
I would actually, I'm going to make an argument that it's not great for fans either, because it's hard to get to. Like, you can't really fly in the Happy Valley unless you want to drop some pretty serious coin to do so. So you're either driving all the way there, or you're flying in the Philly or Pittsburgh and driving at least 3 hours to get to Happy Valley, which you can't stay in, by the way. Unless you have an RV and want to pay for RV parking. And like stadium amenities, like they suck. So that's why they're renovating the whole thing. Like the stadium is so outdated. They just like started playing football in the field. I guess this is true of most college football stadiums, and Penn State just seems to have done it worse than anybody else. Started playing football in the field and then just like continued building an erector set around that patch of grass, rather than like at any point thinking like, hey, we should build a football specific stadium. They just kept adding on top of it to the point where it is a monstrosity that is not actually built to hold 107,000 people or whatever it claims to hold, depending on what James Franklin wants to tweet that particular day. So I don't think it's good, like tremendous for fans or media. If you definitely have a place to stay in State College, then it's pretty good. But if you don't, then it becomes like a bit of a complicated mess that I'm not entirely sure is worth the trip. Like, I'd much rather spend my money to go watch a game somewhere else other than State College. And that's coming from someone who's seen quite a few games in Beaver Stadium and lived in State College for 5 years.
I have Penn State on the same list that I have the Rose Bowl. Like, everything about everything there is terrible except for the 60 minutes of the game, which are awesome. Like, on the field is awesome. Anything, the minute you leave the field, it becomes a nightmare. As you said, like, you can't stay anywhere close. The drive is miserable. It's not just a boring drive. It's also like a tedious, boring drive where there's like always traffic, 2-lane roads, like just turnpikes. Then you get to the stadium and we're parked like a mile away in a gravel pit where you have to then drag 60 pounds of camera equipment over a rocky terrain instead of like on a sidewalk. So basically,
on Everest, man, it's not that bad.
Okay, next time we go, you handle my equipment. And
we help you carry the equipment from the parking lot.
Take my camera case and see if you can get to the interior room or closet that we have for the photo workroom without lenses breaking apart because of all of the rattling and shaking that's happening to the tiny little screws in those things. It's a nightmare scenario. Then you have to go through the stadium and you're surrounded by fans through the entire time. The players have to stop so fans can harass them. It is a terrible setup all over. And you didn't even talk about really the press box and how bad that is.
I was about to tag in, my friend, and if you like having no room to sit, no room to work, and one bathroom, boy, do I have a press box for you.
Not one. Be more specific. One toilet.
One toilet. Yes.
Not a bathroom. But you also get the built-in scent of nonstop urine, which is great also because it's so close to everyone.
Yeah. No, that's really delightful.
You get Big Ten flavored ice cream, so it's a win.
No, that's usually... I've never had that in the press box because the like 3 containers of it are immediately taken by like the first 10 people who go into the press box.
People who know the deal. You got to get there early.
So we're not going to go all 1 through 14. I think that would get repetitive to make some of these same arguments, but it makes no sense that Penn State, which regularly hosts some of the most important games in college football, would leave like no room for anyone to walk, sit, work, have functioning Wi-Fi. It's inconceivable what Penn State has done there for the last 100 years of college football.
Yeah, they are renovating it. I did find it funny, like not watching, but reading some of the coverage of the Board of Trustees meeting on scrolling through Twitter. And one of the points made during the presentation was that they had not updated the press box since 1960. So it's like,
I would have guessed 1920.
Yeah, amenities aside, like whatever, I am fearful that thing is going to fall off the stadium every time we go there. That is my number one complaint with Penn State's press boxes. Again, it's just something they snapped onto the side on the stadium when they was like, oh, we should make this bigger for more people. And it's like, nope, it's like a separate apparatus that just sort of leans against the stadium that it feels like at any moment might just fall off. So I hope I'm not there when that happens.
But then when they do the post game, you actually have to walk through the real life erector set. You do. You're doing interviews and like ducking under pieces of
steel beams,
steel beams, like hanging 5 feet in the air. Like I've watched multiple colleagues, not just television people, but mostly television people, holding a camera, walking around, just getting destroyed by the beams. Like, it's dangerous.
Got to keep your head on the swivel down there. Yeah.
As an alum and ostensibly as a Penn State fan growing up, I read that there were 2 of the trustees that voted against the renovations, and it was Jay Paterno and some guy named Lubrano.
Anthony Lubrano. Yeah.
Which obviously for Austin and I, Lubrano, I mean, it's a Rutgers thing more than a Penn State thing. But are those people notoriously, are they thought of notoriously and hated in Happy Valley all the time or what?
I don't know. I can't figure because like there's still people there that love Joe Pa. So like I don't know if they love Jay as an extension of that. I think probably not because Jay seems rather annoying. I think Jay Paterno had removed himself from the vote because he was like part of some like private equity group that was trying to fund the stadium in a different way. I don't know. It was just a way for Jay Paterno to make it about him, which seems like something he likes to do. And then Anthony Lubrano is like a huge Joe Paterno guy. I don't know their backstory. I do know that like his family, I think, helped build their new baseball stadium.
Does he own a pizza joint in New Jersey?
Probably.
That's about 5 minutes from Shy Stadium.
Question.
Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah, definitely does.
Hey,
hey, buddy, don't forget the loop.
We've talked about Penn State for 8.5 minutes.
That's a long Penn State conversation
because it's so far and away the worst that it deserves.
There's dozens of you still listening. Let's move on to something else.
Okay. Berm, I was surprised. You have always tried to make a case for Rutgers, and you just complained about the long walk through gravel and breaking equipment. And the furthest and worst parking spot that exists is Rutgers.
But there's sidewalks there.
There are sidewalks.
And that's important to me when dealing with that. Plus, there's no traffic either. So we can get there. And yes, it's a bit of a hike. It's 1.5 miles or so from the bubble to the stadium, but there's nobody in your way, and there's sidewalks.
Okay.
It's the benefit of having a lot of guys in the state who are looking for no-show concrete jobs. You get a lot of sidewalks that help you get to the stadium.
Right, whatever works, I'm fine with it. But what I also like is that they serve us good food at Rutgers, so I'm always happy with Piscataway.
They serve us good food?
We've had prime rib at Rutgers. We've had Thanksgiving
dinner. Yeah.
Like no one else has ever come close to that. So Rutgers has a special place in my heart. They're like very high on my list. And plus I think the stadium is so quaint and kind of cute, you know?
There's other places that serve way better food than Rutgers. That's just the only place that you walk up to the press box to get it.
Well, yeah, because it's so quaint and cute and I can do it in 1 minute.
They're also they're I like that their press box is in the middle of the two seating sections and not like super high up. It's a pretty good vantage point.
Rutgers is much higher if we did 1 through 14 than I would want it to be, because my other frustrations are just driving 9 hours. The press box is spacious. You do have to walk up flights of stairs to get to the field to the press box, but that's a small price to pay. I'm willing to do that. So I actually would save Rutgers some of the shots, and I would probably redirect more of them to, let's say, someone who thinks that they're investing in their sports and wants to compete at a high level and has no idea how to do it, which is Maryland.
Oh yeah, Maryland stinks for a lot of reasons. I don't like covering games at Maryland. And it doesn't help that the games I guess the last couple of games have been oddly compelling, but prior to that, they were really boring on top of it being a terrible trip. So I'm not a huge fan of what Maryland has to offer.
So the same thing that I bitch about there with like that the players have to deal with no locker room space leads to a wild free for all for covering the game afterwards, which is like the players spilling out, trying to get dressed, trying to leave. And like they take Ohio State's coach and they walk them up the stairway to another tiny closet where none of the Ohio State media fits. And you have to like try and watch out the window or the one door that's in there. Like, oh, are the players leaving? Are they getting on the bus? Am I going to be able to talk to any players? Because there's not a designated media area for them. They're just wandering around outside in the south end zone of their stadium. It's so dumb. What are you doing, Maryland?
The first time I went to Maryland, I went into the photo room, which is the size of a closet. And I was told I had to leave because there's only like 4 seats in there and they're all for Maryland photographers, like not just Maryland credentialed media, but Maryland's team photographers. And so like there's nowhere to sit for media. I also don't even know what that room that you guys do the press conference with the head coach looks like because I've never been able to get into it. So I just stand outside the door.
Go to the smallest room in your house and turn the lights off.
Pretend that there's a tornado coming to your house. Now go. That is the Maryland postgame room.
And see like when the coaches are leaving and when the players are leaving, and then I try to grab someone.
You were really thrilled the last time we were there 2 years ago about not being able to get in for the postgame press conference. You couldn't get in. Meanwhile, I was on the left side away from the door behind Ryan Day. I couldn't get out. I was stuck in. You were stuck out. It was terrifying, but I was safe from bad weather.
Yeah,
that is true.
Oh. Yeah. What else? The other parts of Maryland that are awful, you have to stay in DC, which can be fine-ish depending on time of year and what else is happening in that area. So like hotels are pretty good. So I'm not going to count that as a negative because there is stuff to do in DC if we're there. So like that elevates Maryland a little bit to me. But that's why like Penn State's so far and above the worst because there's nothing to do there either. But Northwestern is the second worst in my mind. So we talked about them a lot on Monday, or Tuesday, so I don't want to deep dive into them anymore. But that because where it's located in Chicago, there's really nothing convenient about Northwestern at all. And Chicago to go out is kind of meh in my mind. But I also don't like, pizza that's
Lasagna.
I don't like lasagna pizza. So yeah.
Bill, who else gets a spot? Let's just say it's a tier of the bottom tier. Who else fits in for you?
I've only covered one game there, and honestly, I can't remember like what the press box situation was all the while. I just remember like the interview situation being very bad, and that was Illinois. And then on top of that, like there is absolutely nothing to do with in Champaign. So that one, I think I would put on the list of the pretty brutal. I think you guys maybe have been there more than I have. I was just there for that one game in 2015, I guess it was. That's my only time I've spent any time in Champaign, but I didn't love it. I didn't think it was great.
That's because you just don't appreciate wind.
It was windy that day. That's for sure. Yeah.
For wind connoisseurs, it's the only place to go watch a game.
That's right. If you love wind, come to Champaign. I just you want to talk like small interview rooms like that. That was like a broom closet that Urban did his press conference in. Right. And there's like single seating on either side of the room. And then like, that's kind of it. It was weird. It's like the world's smallest classroom. And that's where they did the post-game interview for Urban.
With as much money as the Big Ten has coming into it, there ought to be some standard of care provided for people who are there. I mean, like, I think it's absolutely inexcusable that there isn't a minimum bar that these programs have to clear in order to host games against Ohio State, to be honest. Because it's not just Ohio State, it's Michigan.
It's not just Ohio State. Right. Ohio, and now, like, I guess we're going to find out the size of the traveling contingent for USC and UCLA games. But, Oregon, we've seen, has a generally decent size amount of people that are coming. And if you're bringing in these major broadcast deals, to your point, Berman, it's like, it's like, I don't complain. You have to be able to get CBS, Fox, NBC in there so that they can take the post-game press conferences live if they need to. And that's almost impossible at virtually every spot in the Big Ten. And I think that's like, at some point they're going to realize you're going to have to do something. You cannot put them in a closet adjacent to the Ohio State locker room, which finally Purdue stopped doing that. But over half the league, that's still the situation that we're facing.
I think at the time, maybe Illinois might have been doing some renovations maybe at the time I was there. So it could be much better now than it was back then. I just remember it being pretty bad back then. But yeah,
I remember being plastic tarps down in the end zone or something when we were there in 2015. Yeah. And it was either renovating or using it as a kill room for Dexter. But I assume it was renovation.
It was definitely one of those two things.
Yeah, had to be one.
Let's see.
So let's talk about the surprising good places in the Big Ten.
Okay, I will. Michigan State.
Yeah,
I'm going to give you credit. I love to make fun of your hilarious press box food situation, which, if you've not heard this before, are 2 vouchers that are good for either 1 hot dog, 1 brat, or 1 extremely dry pretzel. And if you would like to get cheese for your pretzel, well, that's going to be $1 out of your pocket. Fine. Again, this is not about my actual comfort and the food. I am a grown man. I can pack food and snacks if I need to, or I'll eat beforehand or after. I'm not worried. I'm not rating the press box food. And this is how you know it comes from the heart. Their press box setup is spacious and comfortable. I don't believe I've ever had a Wi-Fi issue. And their post-game press conference room is by far the best in the Big Ten, and that includes Ohio State.
Yeah,
so
they have the best media workroom in the Big Ten.
Michigan State, kudos to you. You've done it. You have earned my praise.
I like Michigan State. I have a picture of a Ohio State beat member taking a nap in the Michigan State press box on my computer. Should we put that up on the screen?
Let's not reveal who took that picture.
Okay.
We don't need to reveal who took it. Could we just reveal who it's of?
Nah,
not right now. We'll save that. We'll save that for a road beers episode.
He could have been having a rough day. Maybe he just needed the map.
So Michigan State is definitely in the top tier. Indiana to me is in the top tier because they have a really great media workroom as well. Easy.
They renovated all that. It's all new down there. Yeah,
it's like that 37 South to Bloomington is not nearly as bad as it was 20 years ago, We can stay in Indianapolis. It's nice and easy. We love staying in Indianapolis. Like Indiana to me is high on the list. Love Nebraska. Really liked our first time at Minnesota in the new Minnesota. I didn't love it in 2014 because it was 10 degrees and there was a blizzard, but I loved it in 2021. So if we can play maybe more games against Minnesota in September, then I'm all for trips to Minneapolis.
Yeah. I think Minnesota and Nebraska, I think maybe are my two favorite. They're harder to get to, obviously, but in terms of like from a media standpoint, they're both very good. And like also like Lincoln's cool, Omaha's cool, Minneapolis is very cool. Like it's a good place to spend a weekend, I think.
Yeah, I like Nebraska because if you decide that if you can get in early enough to stay in Lincoln, it's a really cool experience. Mm-hmm. But even if you're forced to stay in Omaha's a lot of fun and really good food, really good like breweries and stuff like that. So Nebraska is definitely up on my list.
Always got to hit up DTO. Hit up the brewery scene in DTO, your favorite spot.
And the people there are great. Remember that time we were walking in DTO and there was a dead snake on the sidewalk, and that was one of the weirder things I've seen.
Do you remember? Let's tie this together. Hey, Bill, remember how Berm says that he doesn't ever expose his toes? This man was walking through downtown Omaha. There was a dead snake on the road. He was complaining about how far I was making him walk to go between breweries. And then guess what? He had sandals on to step on this dead snake.
Why did you step on the dead snake?
I didn't see it. It was a weird.
It wasn't like a spiteful step, but you just accidentally.
No, but also like we were like 2 miles between breweries, and we were walking. We were meeting one of Austin's buddies, and he didn't tell me we were going for a hike, so I didn't think it was going to be a big deal to wear flops. You know what I mean? Like I was expecting a brewery scene where we drive, we get an Uber to one place, we walk 15 feet to the next. Like we were doing like a 2-mile hike uphill both ways in downtown Omaha. It was like 95 degrees.
But those toes were still going to be out in the brewery scene.
I'm so sorry that I like to have my feet getting a little bit of air when it's 90 plus in DTO. I didn't expect there to be a dead snake on the sidewalk. That
I think
weird.
Sorry, go ahead. Nebraska, it's not Omaha, it's Lincoln, has my favorite food item I've ever had on a road trip.
Runza.
Which is no, not a Runza. I don't mind a Runza, but it's not a Runza. In downtown Lincoln, you can walk there from the stadium because I did, and I hate walking places, so it's not that far. It's called Muchachos, and it's a small little burrito joint. It's got like a bar and a couple tables, and I had like a brisket breakfast burrito that it was a time. It was huge. I ate it before the game, which is probably not the best idea because I just want to take a nap during the game. And it was like 11 a.m. local time kick, and I put down this breakfast burrito at like 8:30 in the morning. But it's very good. So if you ever go to a game in Lincoln, find Muchachos, go in the morning and get yourself a brisket breakfast burrito, and you will not be disappointed.
I think both Austin and I would agree that downtown Omaha had this place that served chicken fried bacon. Ooh. That was probably like at the top of like of the list of like individual food items we've eaten on the road. We're like that was a
experience,
a mind opening experience.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that's a place where I have nothing to complain about with Nebraska, and I know many other Ohio State fans who've gone there have raved about how welcoming the fan base is. Like they pride themselves on their sellout streak, and that people should visit their stadium to see the Huskers and what they have to offer in Lincoln. And that's always lived up to the billing for me. So I think it's one of the best. Who else deserves any acclaim or criticism?
Iowa's sort of nondescript. Wisconsin is Madison's awesome, but I mean
Madison's a great town. Yeah.
Ann Arbor, we never go out there, and it's
well. Let's just wrap it up by what it's like to cover a game in the Big House. Like I think people would want to know, and Bill said it. It's truly terrible.
I think it's not even.
Are they the only place in the league that charges us to park?
No, Michigan State also charges.
Okay. Yeah, it's a Michigan thing, I guess. Broke-ass state.
Michigan State charges $50 like Michigan does.
I think it was the last time we were in East Lansing. I believe it was $40, and the last time we went to the Big House, it was $80.
It's $80.
But at least Michigan State, the parking is like, next to the stadium. Ish.
I think
it's in a parking garage.
Yeah.
If I said that I think Michigan as a college football experience is maybe the most overrated in the sport, would you agree? Is that a hot take? Is that a cold take?
Most overrated?
I think the Big House sucks. Like, it's just a lot of people. Like, it's not loud. It's not cool. It's like kind of.
I don't want to say it's not loud because I was on the field in 2021 and I was almost crushed to death in November. But I also missed all of post-game press conference in November because the police wouldn't let me go back into the tunnel because the
Scotty Shepard. Huh?
So like I was stuck out there for 45 minutes because the cops refused to let me go back up the tunnel, even though I had my credential and 3 cameras, and said, he's like, well, we got to wait till all the players are back. I'm like, there's players that are 80 yards away, stuck in a crowd of 130,000 people. So they're probably never going to get here. Oh, sorry. You're stuck. I'm like, okay, you are. And I backed the blue, buddy. Okay. Not that day. Not that day.
Didn't even ruin $80 worth of pants. Just let him go.
Yeah. Did not like that. Their sidelines are terribly small. One tunnel is a nightmare for a number of logistical reasons. I don't know what their food situation is there. Their post-game stuff, they stuff everyone into a room that's 3 sizes too small. There's not a lot good about Michigan.
Yeah. I can't really. Here's my problem with calling it overrated, Bill. Like, I don't know what it's like to be in the Big House.
Fair.
Like, the press box is built out. We enter outside. You can't go into the seats. We can't. You and I, Berm gets to. We can't go down on the field before the game. The way very few other programs do it this way. And if that's the choice that they make, fine. I think it's frustrating. It prevents us from doing some of our job, but we've always been able to work around that in some form or fashion. But like, you're completely removed from it. It is like the Big House exists, and then they decided to plop a press box on top. And then once the game's over, well, you still can't go down to the field or get in the stadium. You go down and then you walk around that entire outside concourse to get to the other side of the stadium to go into that unnecessarily small post-game room. It's like, I can't hear anything in that press box. I don't really know what the sound is like. The windows aren't open when we're there in late November. Like, what is it like to watch a game in the Big House? No clue. I mean, I watch in a press box that feels like it might as well be in a spaceship.
Yeah, maybe that's why, like, for you guys, it feels like it doesn't get loud. But it's also, I think the Ohio State games the last couple of years were an anomaly of how loud it got. Like, it's not normally like that, but it's not a good experience.
My opinion is strongly informed by going to the Penn State Michigan game in 2014. Yeah. I watched it from the stands, and the score was 18-13. Which just wasn't the most compelling football game anyone's ever seen. But I just, like, it was my first time ever there. And like, when the first time I walked into Ohio Stadium, I was like, holy, like, this is like a cathedral of college football. And I felt I expected to feel the same thing when I walked into the Big House. And I was like, this is a hole in the ground. And it was just like, I'm wholly unimpressed with the whole operation up there. Like, yeah. So I'm not a huge fan. Yeah.
Should we objectively evaluate Ohio State for others? I mean, I think that there's so many things Ohio State does better than everyone else in the Big Ten from a media perspective, from what we do to cover a game, but also, like, from my perspective, the media workroom is one of the worst in the Big Ten. It's big enough for people to be there at least, but it's an outdoor.
It's a garage.
It's a garage that I have to avoid water dripping from above my head from the seats.
Are you sure it's water?
I'm not sure it's water, Bill. That's the problem.
It's the South Stand, so it could be any number of things.
If it's hot, it's unbearable. If it's cold, you can't type. I can't use my hands because of so. There's a porta potty. At least this year they gave us a second one, which was nice, I guess. They put a bucket of water down there this year for the first time in 12 years, so it is getting better. But like
a bucket, just one. Everyone had to go take
a drink from it like it's a water hole.
There were apples in there. That's how we get our lunch. Just bob for them. But
that's where your experience is different than ours, because Ohio State's press box is one of the very best in the sport.
Yeah.
And I've had to go into the visiting press conference area for games in the past, and it is definitely large enough to accommodate maybe not the full Ohio State beat, but it is a large room. Both players and coaches were brought up there for the times that I've been in. It's what every program in the Big Ten should have, because it's like Ohio State made this like, well, what if we had to go cover a game here? Like, would our media be comfortable and able to do their job? And like, let's make sure that we have that. And they did that in the Horseshoe. So that seems smart. But nowhere else really had that foresight except Michigan State. But
yeah, we get to park right across the street. Like there's, despite the fact that there's 200,000 people down there, it's never hard to it's a little annoying that they make us take a circuitous route to get into the parking garage. But other than that, like it's pretty convenient for everything. By the time we leave, everyone's gone. So it's not like you have any trouble getting out of town. But Ohio State food wise is pretty generic, but it's not bad. It's just generic. It's not like they ever do anything special. But you guys get to go down on the field before the game. You get to come down at the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter. Like there's a lot of things that they do really well.
Yeah. And they're a little liberal too with the 5-minute thing. You can probably get down there more like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter if you want to.
Yeah.
Which is my least favorite part of the game.
Why is that?
Well, because the sidelines are already too packed. And then we add 100 extra people on there who decide they have to go down there so they can, you guys are not, you're not guilty of this. Believe me, I know who is, but you're not down there taking pictures of the game and taking pictures of yourself, being like, I'm covering Ohio State. Like, we get it. You do this every week.
I don't think I've ever done that. Lucky me. I don't have to get criticized by Berm for that. Yeah, thank you. This might have felt like a Freaky Friday. It kind of was. This is a little bit off topic, but I do appreciate several of you reaching out saying that you liked hearing about the complaints about Wrigley Field and some of the stuff about the road, and followed up. And I shared a few thoughts with those people on subtext. And if you want to do that, that number has been scrolling down below throughout this episode. And if you want to send some our way for an actual Freaky Friday mailbag for some off the field stuff, do that now. And I'll send out a text for that as well, to ask for a reminder as we record that episode to wrap up this week heading into Memorial Day weekend. So different kind of show, not a lot of ball talk, but hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you didn't, I'm sorry. That's my standard apology for you. But if you made it to this point, I think you must have been entertained, at least mildly. For Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham, I am Austin Ward. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you tomorrow.